Jack Taylor wiped the sweat from his brow as he tightened the last bolt on the mining rig. The oppressive heat of Zorath's twin suns beat down on him, making the task arduous. He stood up, stretching his sore muscles, and took a moment to gaze at the alien landscape. Red, jagged mountains pierced the sky, and the vast desert stretched out endlessly. The planet's beauty was marred by the Zorathi's harsh rule. Jack, an Australian engineer known for his resourcefulness, had been stationed on Zorath for a year. He had seen the cruelty of the Zorathi firsthand, but today, something different gnawed at him, a slave auction taking place in the shadows of the mining outpost. His colleague, Murdoch, had whispered about it, but Jack hadn't believed it until he saw it with his own eyes. Jack made his way through the narrow alleys, his curiosity piqued. He reached a hidden courtyard, concealed from the prying eyes of most humans. The scene before him was appalling. Various species, including humans, were chained and displayed like commodities. His gaze fell upon a young Zorathi woman. Her eyes, vibrant and intelligent, met his. Despite her disheveled appearance, there was a dignity about her that set her apart. "Lyra," a harsh voice barked, and she flinched. The auctioneer, a burly Zorathi named Zarnak, dragged her to the front. "This one is special. Strong and smart. Perfect for any task." Jack felt a surge of anger. He couldn't stand by and watch this atrocity, but what could he do? Intervening could mean his death or worse, becoming a slave himself. His internal conflict was palpable. That evening, Jack returned to his quarters, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the image of Lyra. He knew he had to do something, but the risks were immense. He paced back and forth, pondering his options. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Amelia Reed, a seasoned human rights activist and Jack's mentor, entered. Her presence was both a comfort and a reminder of the moral duty he felt. "Jack, you seem troubled," Amelia said, her eyes filled with concern. "There's a slave auction, Amelia. I saw a young Zorathi woman. She looked different. I can't just leave her there." Amelia sighed, her face grim. "I've heard rumors. The Zorathi's cruelty knows no bounds. But you can't act recklessly. We need a plan." Jack nodded. "I know. But what can we do? They're heavily guarded." Amelia reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. "This is an EMP disruptor. It can temporarily disable their security systems. It's risky, but it might give you a chance." Jack took the device, feeling a mix of hope and fear. "I'll need more than just this." Amelia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You have your wits, Jack. And you have me. We'll figure this out together." The next day, Jack prepared meticulously. He studied the layout of the auction site and planned his infiltration. As night fell, he donned a dark cloak and set out, the EMP disruptor hidden in his tool belt. Reaching the auction site, Jack waited in the shadows. He watched as Zarnak barked orders, the slaves looking more despondent than ever. He spotted Lyra, her eyes scanning the crowd as if seeking a way out. Jack activated the EMP disruptor. The lights flickered and chaos erupted. Guards scrambled, trying to restore order. Jack seized the moment, slipping through the confusion to reach Lyra. "Come with me if you want to live," he whispered, breaking her chains with a laser cutter. Lyra hesitated for a split second before nodding. Together, they navigated the chaos, dodging guards and avoiding detection. As they reached the outskirts of the courtyard, Zarnak's voice boomed behind them. "Stop them!" Jack and Lyra sprinted through the dark alleys, their hearts pounding. The sounds of pursuit grew fainter, but Jack knew they weren't safe yet. They reached a hidden tunnel that led to an abandoned warehouse. Inside, they collapsed, breathing heavily. Jack looked at Lyra, seeing both fear and determination in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "I don't know why you did it, but thank you." Jack smiled, though the weight of their situation hung heavy. "We're not safe yet, but we'll get through this, together." Jack and Lyra huddled in the shadows of the abandoned warehouse, the distant sounds of pursuit echoing through the tunnels. Jack's mind raced as he planned their next move. The EMP disruptor had bought them some time, but it wouldn't be long before Zarnak and his guards regrouped. "We need to keep moving," Jack said, his voice steady but urgent. They'll be searching for us soon. Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. Where can we go? Jack glanced around the dimly lit warehouse, considering their options. There's an old network of tunnels beneath the city. They were used for smuggling before the Zarathi cracked down. If we can reach them, we might be able to find a way out. Lyra's eyes widened. Do you know the way? Jack smiled, a hint of confidence returning. I have a map. It's risky, but it's our best shot. They slipped through a narrow passage at the back of the warehouse, Jack leading the way. The air grew cooler and damper as they descended into the labyrinthine tunnels. Jack's flashlight cast eerie shadows on the walls, illuminating faded graffiti and signs of past inhabitants. As they moved deeper into the underground maze, Jack and Lyra exchanged stories. Jack learned that Lyra had been a scholar before being captured, her knowledge vast and her spirit unbroken. Lyra discovered Jack's unwavering sense of justice and his resolve to make a difference. Why did you risk everything to save me? Lyra asked, her voice soft but curious. Jack paused, considering his answer. Because no one deserves to be a slave. And because I couldn't stand by and do nothing? Lyra smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Thank you, Jack. They continued in silence, the bond between them growing stronger. The tunnels twisted and turned, but Jack's map guided them. They navigated through narrow passages and across underground streams, their progress slow but steady. Suddenly, Jack stopped, holding up a hand to signal silence. They listened, hearing the faint sounds of footsteps and voices echoing through the tunnels. Zarnak's men were close. We need to move faster, Jack whispered. There's a junction up ahead. If we can reach it, we can take the left tunnel and hopefully lose them. They quickened their pace, the sounds of pursuit growing louder. The tension was palpable, every step a potential risk. As they reached the junction, Jack's flashlight flickered, then went out. Damn, he muttered, shaking the flashlight. Stay close. They plunged into darkness, relying on touch and memory to navigate. Jack's heart pounded as he led Lyra through the maze, each turn bringing them closer to safety or danger. Finally, they emerged into a larger chamber, dimly lit by bioluminescent fungi. Jack's relief was short-lived as he heard a shout from behind. Zarnak's men had found them. Run! Jack yelled, grabbing Lyra's hand. They sprinted across the chamber, dodging stalagmites and leaping over crevices. The sound of pursuing footsteps grew louder, the tension mounting with each passing second. Ahead, Jack saw a narrow fissure in the wall. In here, he shouted, pushing Lyra through the gap. They squeezed through the fissure, emerging into a narrow tunnel that sloped upward. The sound of pursuit faded slightly as the tunnel twisted and turned, leading them further from their pursuers. Breathing heavily, they reached a small cavern. Jack collapsed against the wall, pulling Lyra down beside him. We need to rest for a moment. Lyra nodded, her breath coming in gasps. Do you think we lost them? Jack shook his head. Not for long. We need to keep moving, but we also need to be careful. One wrong turn and we could end up back in their hands. They rested for a few moments, gathering their strength. Jack studied the map by the faint light of the bioluminescent fungi, plotting their next move. There's an exit not far from here, he said finally. It leads to the outskirts of the city. From there, we can find transport and get off this planet. Lyra nodded, her resolve firm. Let's go. They moved cautiously, the tunnel walls closing in around them. The tension was palpable, every sound amplified in the confined space. As they neared the exit, Jack heard a distant rumble, a transport ship preparing for takeoff. We're close, he whispered. Stay quiet and follow my lead. They crept toward the sound, emerging into a vast underground hangar. Jack's heart raced as he spotted a small transport ship, its engines idling. That's our way out, he said, pointing. Lyra's eyes widened. How do we get past the guards? Jack scanned the area, formulating a plan. I'll create a diversion. You get to the ship and start the engines. I'll join you as soon as I can. Lyra grabbed his arm. Be careful, Jack. He nodded, giving her a reassuring smile. I will. Now go. Jack slipped into the shadows, moving silently toward a stack of crates. He knocked them over, creating a loud crash that echoed through the hangar. The guards rushed to investigate, giving Lyra the chance to slip aboard the transport ship. As the guards scattered, Jack made his way to the ship, avoiding detection. He joined Lyra in the cockpit, and together they prepared for takeoff. The transport ship soared through the atmosphere, breaking free from Zorath's oppressive gravity. Jack and Lyra shared a moment of triumph, but the danger was far from over. They had escaped the immediate threat, but they were now fugitives in the vast expanse of space. "We need to reach the nearest human outpost," Jack said, navigating the ship's controls with practiced ease. "There's a space station not far from here. We can refuel and plan our next move." Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the ship's readouts. "Do you think Zarnak will follow us?" Jack grimaced. "He's relentless. We need to stay ahead of him." As they approached the space station, Lyra's expression turned serious. "Jack, I have something important to tell you." Jack glanced at her, sensing the gravity of her words. "What is it?" Lyra took a deep breath. "Before I was captured, I discovered something about the Zorathi. They're planning an invasion. They have a fleet hidden in a nearby system, ready to strike." Jack's eyes widened. "We need to warn the humans. This changes everything." They docked at the space station, blending in with the bustling crowd of traders, travelers, and officials. Jack and Lyra kept a low profile, making their way to a secluded corner where they could strategize. "We need to find a way to contact the human authorities," Jack said. "But we can't do it openly. Zarnak's influence might reach even here." Lyra nodded. "I have a contact. Dr. Amelia Reed mentioned a covert human network operating in this sector. If we can find them, they can help us." They moved through the station's labyrinthine corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfare. Jack's keen eyes scanned for any sign of Zarnak's men. The tension was palpable, every shadow a potential threat. Finally, they reached a small, nondescript bar tucked away in a dim corner of the station. Jack approached the bartender, a grizzled old man with a wary look. "We're looking for a friend," Jack said, his voice low. "Dr. Amelia Reed sent us." The bartender's eyes flickered with recognition. He nodded subtly and gestured to a back room. Jack and Lyra followed, entering a dimly lit chamber where a group of humans awaited. "Welcome," said a tall, imposing woman. "I'm Captain Elena Marlowe. Amelia mentioned you might come. What's the situation?" Jack quickly explained their escape and the impending Zorathi invasion. Captain Marlowe listened intently, her expression growing graver by the minute. "We've suspected something was amiss," she said. "Your information confirms our worst fears. We need to act fast." As they discussed their next steps, a young man burst into the room, his face pale. "Captain, we've got company. Zarnak's men are here." Jack's heart sank. "We need to leave, now." Captain Marlowe nodded, her demeanor decisive. "We have a ship ready. Follow me." They moved swiftly through the station, the atmosphere tense with urgency. As they neared the docking bay, the sound of pursuing footsteps grew louder. Zarnak's men were closing in. "We're almost there," Marlowe said, her voice steady. "Keep moving." They reached the docking bay, the ship's engines already humming. Jack and Lyra hurried aboard, followed by Marlowe and her crew. The ship lifted off just as Zarnak's men burst into the bay, their shouts echoing futilely. As the ship sped away from the station, Jack and Lyra joined Marlowe on the bridge. The captain turned to them, her expression resolute. "We're heading to the human fleet," Marlowe said. "They need to hear your warning. We'll do everything we can to stop the Zorathi." Lyra nodded, her resolve firm. "We must succeed. Too many lives are at stake." Jack placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We will, together." The ship cut through the void of space, the journey fraught with tension. They knew Zarnak wouldn't give up easily, and the threat of the Zorathi invasion loomed large. As they neared the human fleet, sensors blared an alarm. A Zorathi warship had appeared on their tail, its weapons locking onto their vessel. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Marlowe barked, her crew springing into action. Jack and Lyra braced themselves as the ship jolted, weaving through space to avoid the incoming fire. The tension was palpable, every second bringing them closer to the brink of destruction. "We need to buy some time," Jack said, his mind racing. "Lyra, can you access the ship's systems and boost our shields?" Lyra nodded, her fingers flying over the console. "I'll do my best." The ship shuddered as the Zarathi warship closed in, its weapons firing relentlessly. Jack's heart pounded, every instinct focused on survival. Just as it seemed they were out of options, a squadron of human fighters appeared, engaging the Zarathi warship. The tide of the battle turned, and Marlowe's ship sped toward the safety of the fleet. As they docked with the human flagship, Jack and Lyra breathed a sigh of relief. They had made it, but the battle was far from over. "Welcome aboard," said a stern-faced admiral. "We've been expecting you." The human flagship buzzed with activity as Jack and Lyra were escorted to the command center. The stern-faced admiral, introduced as Admiral Hawkins, led the way. The urgency in the air was palpable, each crew member focused on the impending threat. "Admiral, we have crucial information," Jack began, his voice steady but urgent. "The Zarathi are planning a full-scale invasion. They have a fleet hidden in a nearby system." Admiral Hawkins nodded, his expression grave. "We've had suspicions, but your intel confirms it. We need to prepare immediately." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes burning with determination. "We can't just defend. We need to strike first. If we take out their fleet before they mobilize, we can prevent countless deaths." Hawkins considered her words. "A preemptive strike is risky, but it might be our best shot. We'll need a detailed plan." Jack and Lyra spent hours with Hawkins and his officers, mapping out a strategy. The plan was bold, a surprise attack on the Zarathi fleet's staging area, using their knowledge of the enemy's weaknesses to their advantage. As the briefing ended, Hawkins addressed the assembled crew. "We're facing a formidable enemy, but with courage and unity, we can prevail. Prepare for launch." Jack and Lyra returned to their quarters, exhaustion tugging at them. Jack lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. "Lyra, do you think we can do this?" Lyra sat beside him, her hand finding his. "We have to. There's no other choice." The ship's intercom crackled to life. "All hands to battle stations. Prepare for immediate departure." The human fleet surged forward, moving with precision and purpose. The tension was palpable, each second bringing them closer to the confrontation. Jack and Lyra took their positions on the bridge, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. As they approached the Zarathi system, sensors picked up the enemy fleet. Admiral Hawkins' voice was calm but firm. "Execute the plan. All ships, engage at will." The human fleet descended upon the Zarathi, catching them off guard. Explosions rocked the void as ships exchanged fire, the battle unfolding with fierce intensity. Jack's heart pounded as he monitored the tactical display, his fingers flying over the controls. "Focus on their command ship," Hawkins ordered. "If we take it out, we can disrupt their coordination." Lyra worked beside Jack, her eyes locked on the screen. "I'm sending targeting data to the weapon systems. We need to be precise." The ship shuddered as enemy fire struck its hull. Jack's mind raced, analyzing the situation. "We're taking heavy damage. We need to maneuver around their flank." Hawkins nodded. "Do it, and prepare for evasive maneuvers." The ship banked sharply, dodging incoming fire. Jack and Lyra coordinated their efforts, directing fire at the Zarathi command ship. The tension was electrifying, each second a battle for survival. Finally, a critical hit struck the Zarathi command ship's engines. It listed to one side, its systems failing. A cheer erupted on the bridge, but the battle was far from over. "Keep up the pressure," Hawkins urged. "We need to take out the remaining ships." As the battle raged on, a sudden transmission came through, crackling with static. "This is Zarnak. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." Jack's jaw tightened. "He's here. We need to find him." Lyra's fingers flew over the console. "I've located his ship. It's making a run for it." Hawkins' eyes narrowed. "Pursue and intercept. We can't let him escape." The human ship gave chase, weaving through the debris of the battlefield. Jack's focus was razor-sharp, his determination fueling his actions. They closed in on Zarnak's ship, weapons locked and ready. "Prepare to fire," Hawkins commanded. A volley of lasers erupted, striking Zarnak's ship. It shuddered under the impact, but kept moving. Jack's mind raced, searching for a way to stop him. "Lyra, can you disable their engines?" Jack asked. Lyra nodded, her hands deftly working the controls. "I'm sending a pulse to overload their systems. It's risky, but it might work."